Greetings, everyone. I hope everyone is doing all right tonight. Peace and blessings to you all. Black Peace back at you one more time. And tonight I want to welcome you back to Armageddon 202. And here at Armageddon 202, we not only attack the issues that directly affect the black community, but we also attack the issues that affect humanity as a whole. I want to apologize for the late broadcast, and I also want to let you know that the visuals for the first and second episodes will be on YouTube at Armageddon 202. Tonight, I want to talk to you about a very serious subject that I discovered through my research, and tonight's subject is entitled The 10-Point Plan. Please allow me to read the following. The 10-Point Plan of the New World Order, or How to Prepare the Way of the Antichrist. The strategy, the 10-Point Chart of Alex Bailey adopted by the UN. The purpose, to change Judeo-Christian tradition or to redeem the nations from Judeo-Christian tradition. 1. Take God and prayer out of the education system. She said change curriculum to ensure that children are free from the bondage of Christian culture. Why? Because children go to school to be equipped to face life. They are willing to trust and they are willing to value what is being given to them. If you take God out of education, they will unconsciously form a resolve that God is not necessary to face life. They will focus on those things the school counts them worthy to be passed on, and they will look at God as an additional if one can afford the additional. Note, today they introduce transcendental meditation in schools, which takes children to altered states of consciousness to meet with demons, spirit guides, equal, new age. Now here's a brief backstory on the subject. With the help of Madeleine Murray O'Hair, a famed feminist atheist and dubbed the most hated woman in America, along with two landmark decisions, Ingle versus Vitale, June 25, 1962, and Abington School District versus Shemp, June 17, 1963, the Supreme Court declared school-sponsored prayer and Bible readings unconstitutional. Why do we always find a feminist attempting to remove the Most High from the equation, which only brings about chaos? Look at the schools now, producing new millennials with no real spiritual value, just a monetary value on life. On another note, members of the Democratic Party have been far less inclined to support school prayer than their Republican brethren, with the majority against it. Republicans to this day still support it, just to show you who is really for traditional morals and values, and who in God we can trust. Anyway, we can check that one off. 2. Reduce parental authority over the children. She said, break the communication between the parent and child. Why? So the parents do not pass on their Christian traditions to their children. Liberate children from the bondage of their parents' traditions. How? A. Promote excessive child rights. 1997 to 98. South Africa introduced child rights legislation. UNICEF Charter. Today a child is able to say to parent, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to do what you are telling me. Teachers cannot talk to children. Children step up and say, I have my rights. You cannot talk to me like that. B. Abolish corporal punishment. This has been made law. On the other hand, the Bible says, do not withhold correction from a child. For if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. You shall beat him with the rod and deliver his soul from hell. Proverbs 23, verse 13 through 14. Note, Jesus said in the last days, wickedness will increase. There will be rebellion and children will not obey their parents. It is not a trend, it is organized. C. Teachers are the agents of implementation. From workshops, teachers tell children, your parent has no right to force you to pray or read the Bible. You are yourself. You have a right of your own. You need to discover yourself. Self-expression, self-realization, and self-fulfillment are all buzzwords. Note, in the West, when your child is 7 years, the teacher begins to say to the child, you have the right to choose whether you want to follow the faith of your parents or not. Parents are not allowed to enforce their faith upon you. Question is, what type of decision can a 7-year-old make? Now let's take a look at the power of early education. Some claim this maxim comes from St. Ignatius Loyola himself, yet the idea later proclaimed by the Jesuits is very old. Give us a child till he's 7 and we'll have him for life. See, a topic I spoke of in the first episode was about women wanting their financial independence, and in order for them to obtain that, meant they had to leave the house and seek employment. And the women were ready and willing to do so. But see, I watched a clip about Aaron Russo, the director of Trading Places, and good friends with one of the Rockefellers. He was discussing a conversation he had with a Rockefeller who informed him that the feminist movement was a guise funded by them to get women out of the house so that they would be able to tax both men and women now, and that they would also have access to their children. So now, instead of the parental nurturing that is needed for moral growth, it has now been replaced with instructional nurturing. An example, guidance counselors and their instructors become the problem solvers, no longer the parent. Then there's also social media, which has a proven effect on the child parent bond by taking their attention away from being social in the real world, as well as material parenting, buying your child anything and everything they ask you for. This is sometimes to compensate for their lack of proper parenting in other areas. An example, time, emotional support, and stability. Schools can be melting pots for all different calibers of individuals, and sometimes they have positive and negative effects on a child's behavior. This is a subject I go into detail in my book, MOM, Miseducation of Minors, but that's another show. Also, all the laws that protect a child from their parent are all to limit our ability to discipline our children properly and offer them some sense of devilish power, knowing that they can cry wolf and that the law will come to their rescue and at the parents' inconvenience. And so I guess this is why the UN has yet to ratify the Convention on the Rights of Children, which I include in the above mentioned book. Anyway, well, I guess we can check that one off. 3. Destroy the Judeo-Christian family structure or the traditional Christian family structure. Why? She said it is oppressive and that the family is the core of the nation. If you break the family, you break the nation. Liberate the people from the confines of this structure. How? A. Promote sexual promiscuity. Free young people to the concept of premarital sex. Let them have free sex, lifted so high that the joy of enjoying it, sex, is the highest joy in life. Fantasize it. That everybody will feel proud to be seen to be sexually active, even those outside of marriage. Note, this is contrary to the word of God, which says, but fornication and all uncleanness is covetousness. Let it not even be named among you, as is fitting for saints. For this you know, that no fornicator, unclean person, or covetous man who is an idolater has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Ephesians 5:3-5. B. Use advertising, industry, media, TV, magazines, film, industry to promote sexual enjoyment as the highest pleasure of humanity. Propaganda. Have they succeeded? Have they done it? If you want to see if they have succeeded or not, go to the advertising industry. It does everything to catch your attention, and today, almost no advert comes out without sexual connotation. Even when they advertise ice cream, they must show you a thigh of a woman and a bikini. They must show you something to set off a trail of thoughts. They will show you more thigh than ice cream. Why? Because that is what must be in the minds of the people. Note, the advertising agency is a multi-billion-dollar machine that shapes and controls the ideas and culture with its propaganda from the NWO. And so we already elaborated in full detail on the all-out destruction of the traditional family structure and values. So that's another check. 4. If sex is free, to make abortion legal and make it easy. She said build clinics for abortion, health clinics in schools. If people are going to enjoy the joy of sexual relationships, they need to be free of unnecessary fears. In other words, they should not be hampered with unwanted pregnancies. Abortion is told by Christians is oppressive and denies our rights. We have the right to choose whether we want to have a child or not. If a woman does not want the pregnancy, she should have the freedom to get rid of the pregnancy painless and as easy as possible. Note, today abortion is not only accessible, but many times it may be forced. It is a strategy to curb population control together with the use of condoms and pills. Eugenics. Recent articles have reported an unearthed video from 1947 of Margaret Sanger demanding no more babies for 10 years in developing countries. A couple of years ago, Margaret Sanger was named one of Time magazine's 20 most influential Americans of all time, giving her enduring influence. It's worth considering that the woman who founded Planned Parenthood contributed to the eugenics movement. Sanger shaped the eugenics movement in America and beyond in the 1930s and 1940s. Her views and those of her peers in the movement contributed to the compulsory sterilization laws in 30 U.S. states that resulted in more than 60,000 sterilizations of vulnerable people, including people she considered feeble-minded, idiots, and morons. In a letter to Clarence Gable in 1939, Sanger wrote, "We do not want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And this minister is the man who can straighten out the idea if it ever occurs to any of the more rebellious members." Margaret Sanger commenting on the Negro Project in a letter to Gamble, December 10th, 1939. What is eugenics? It is the study of how to arrange reproduction within a human population to increase the occurrence of heritable characteristics regarded as desirable, developed largely by Sir Francis Galton as a method of improving the human race. Eugenics was increasingly discredited as unscientific and racially biased during the 20th century, especially after the adoption of its doctrines by the Nazis in order to justify their treatment of Jews, disabled people, and other minorities. Since 1973, abortionists took more black lives than any other disease, including the fatal disease, white supremacy, which is supposed to be our major problem. Police brutality, right? Blame that instead of sexual immorality and holding all parties to absolute accountability instead of pointing the finger in one direction. When it comes to sexual relations, women play a greater role in the illegitimacy, which is the proper term, not single mother. That is just another term for a woman to further discredit the man's role in a child's life. I mean, it took two of us to make the baby, and it took two of us to take care of the baby. But because it was out of wedlock, you get to bear the award-winning title, and the father is just monetary value. Anyway, so there goes another check. 5. Make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for life. Alice wrote 50 years ago that love has got a mysterious link called the love bond. It's like an ovum that comes from out of the ovary. As it travels through your system, it clicks a love favor in you. And there's one other person in the world who can respond to that love bond. When you see that person, everything within you clicks. That is your man or woman. If you miss them, you'll never be happy until that love bond cycles past for many years. So for you to be happy, get that person at whatever cost. If it means getting him or her out of that marriage, get him or her. That is your man or woman. It's a mistake for him or her to be elsewhere. And if you go together for some time and find that love has died, don't be held back in bondage by the Christian values. It'll never come back. What you need is an easily arranged divorce and allow another love bond to come forth. Just like an oven opens up, and when it comes forth, you'll enjoy life again. Note, on the contrary, God's word says in Malachi 2, verse 16, for the Lord God of Israel says that God hates divorce. People enter into marriage having signed contracts of how they will share their things after divorce. People enter with one foot and another behind. 50 years ago, divorce was unthinkable. It was one thing for a marriage to fail, but it is another thing for people to enter marriage with the intention to enjoy as long as it was enjoyable and to walk out of it. Before the Divorce Reform Act was passed in 1969, divorce was hugely expensive, as it had been granted by an act of parliament, which meant only the rich were able to get divorced. This changed in 1857 when divorce proceedings transferred from parliament to a court of law, allowing ordinary people to divorce. Why is divorce so common in today's society? In my opinion, one reason that divorce is so common is exactly that. Divorce is so common. Divorce no longer carries the stigma that it used to. You likely know plenty of people who have had at least one divorce, or you yourself may be a child of divorce. God is not against divorce. God is against treacherous divorce. Divorce where the vow breaker abandons the faithful spouse. And God is against treacherous treatment of spouses, such as abuse, abandonment, neglect, and exploitation, as we've already seen. And we have seen and are still seeing treacherous divorce. Women bleeding, men dry. So we know that's a check. 6. Make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. Alex Bailey preached that sexual enjoyment is the highest pleasure in humanity. No one must be denied and no one must be restricted how they enjoy themselves. People should be allowed in whichever way they choose they want, whether it is homosexuality or in incest or bestiality, as long as the two agree. Note, many nations around the world are passing laws that legalize homosexual and gay marriage. It is now classified as hate speech and becoming illegal for ministers of 501c3 organizations to mention homosexuality as an abomination in the eyes of God or to read scriptures publicly that talk about homosexuality. Today, the church is expected to marry gay or lesbians. According to the Bible, this is an abomination before the eyes of God. Leviticus 18, verse 22. And Leviticus 20, verse 13. And let's take a brief look at the timeline. 1924, the Society for Human Rights was founded by Henry Gerber in Chicago. It is the first documented gay rights organization. 1950, the Mattachine Society is formed by activist Harry Hay, and he is one of the first sustained gay rights groups In the United States, the society focuses on social acceptance and other support for homosexuals. April 1952, the American Psychiatric Association Diagnostic Manual lists homosexuality as a sociopathic personality disturbance. April 27, 1953, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signs an executive order that bans homosexuals from working for the government, saying they are a security risk. September 1955, the first known lesbian rights organization in the United States forms in San Francisco, Daughters of Billet, DOB. They host private social functions fearing police raids, threats of violence, and discrimination in bars and clubs. June 1961, Illinois becomes the first state to decriminalize homosexuality by repealing the sodomy laws. September 11, 1961, the first U.S. televised documentary about homosexuality is on a local station in California. June 28, 1969, police raid the Stonewall Inn in New York City. Protests and demonstrations begin, and it later becomes known as the impetus for the gay civil rights movement in the United States. 1969, the Los Angeles Advocate, founded in 1967, is renamed the Advocate. It is considered the oldest continuing LGBTQ publication that began as a newsletter published by the activist group Personal Rights in Defense and Education, PRIDE, in 1966. June 28, 1970, community members in New York City marched through the local streets to recognize the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Riots. This event is named Christopher Street Liberation Day and is now considered the first gay pride parade. 1973, Lambda Legal becomes the first legal organization established to fight for equal rights of gays and lesbians. Lambda also becomes their own first client after being denied nonprofit status. The New York City Supreme Court eventually rules that Lambda Legal can exist as a nonprofit. January 1st, 1973, Maryland becomes the first state to statutorily ban same-sex marriage. March 26, 1973, first meeting of parents and friends of gays, which goes national as Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, PFLAG, in 1982. December 15, 1973, by a vote of 5,854 to 3,810, the American Psychiatric Association removes homosexuality from its list of mental disorders in the DSM-2 Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. 1974, Kathy Kozachenko becomes the first openly LGBTQ American elected to any public office when she wins seat on the Ann Arbor, Michigan City Council. 1974, Elaine Noble is the first openly gay candidate selected to state office when she is selected to the Massachusetts State Legislature. January 14, 1975, the first federal gay rights bill is introduced to address discrimination based on sexual orientation. The bill later goes to the Judiciary Committee but is never brought for consideration. March 1975, Technical Sergeant Leonard P. Matlovich reveals his sexual orientation to his commanding officer and is forcibly discharged from the Air Force 6 months later. Matlovich is a Vietnam War veteran and was awarded both the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star. In 1980, the Court of Appeals rules that the dismissal was improper. Matlovich is awarded his back pay and a retroactive promotion. 1976, after undergoing gender reassignment surgery in 1975, ophthalmologist and professional tennis player Renee Richards is banned from competing in the Women's U.S. Open because of a woman-born woman rule. Richard challenges the decision in 1977, and the New York Supreme Court rules in her favor. Richards competes in the 1977 U.S. Open, but is defeated in the first round by Virginia Wade. January 9, 1978, Harvey Milk is inaugurated as a San Francisco city supervisor and is the first openly gay man to be elected to a political office in California. In November, Milk and Mayor George Moscone are murdered by Dan White, who had recently resigned from his San Francisco board position and wanted Moscone to reappoint him. White later serves just over 5 years in prison for voluntary manslaughter. 1978, inspired by Milk to develop a symbol of pride and hope for the LGBTQ community, Gilbert Baker designs and stitches together the first rainbow flag. October 14th, 1979, the first national march on Washington for lesbian and gay rights takes place. It draws an estimated 75,000 to 125,000 individuals marching for LGBTQ rights. March 2nd, 1982, Wisconsin becomes the first state to outlaw discrimination based on sexual orientation. 1983, Lambda Legal wins People vs. West 12 Tennis Group, the first HIV/AIDS discrimination lawsuit. Neighbors attempted to evict Dr. Joseph Sonabend from the building because he was treating HIV-positive patients. November 30th, 1993, President Bill Clinton signs a military police directive that prohibits openly gay and lesbian Americans from serving in the military, but also prohibits the harassment of closeted homosexuals. The policy is known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell. November 1995, the Hate Crime Sentencing Enhancement Act goes into effect as part of Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. The law allows judges to impose harsher sentences if there is evidence showing that a victim was selected because of the actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, ethnicity, gender, disability, or sexual orientation of a person. September 21st, 1996, President Clinton signs the Defense of Marriage Act, banning federal recognition of same-sex marriage and defining marriage as a legal union between one man, one woman, as husband and wife. December 3rd, 1996, Hawaii's Judge Chang rules that the state does not have the right to deprive same-sex couples of the right to marry, making Hawaii the first state to recognize that gay and lesbian couples are entitled to the same privileges as heterosexual married couples. April 1997, comedian Ellen DeGeneres comes out as a lesbian on the cover of Time magazine, stating, "Yep, I'm gay." April 30th, 1997, DeGeneres' character Ellen Morgan on her self-titled TV series Ellen becomes the first leading character to come out on primetime network television show. April 1st, 1998, Martin Luther King Jr.'s widow, Coretta Scott King, asked the civil rights community to help in the effort to extinguish homophobia. October 6th through the 7th, 1998, Matthew Shepard is tied to a fence and beaten near Laramie, Wyoming. He is eventually found by a cyclist who initially mistakes him for a scarecrow. He later dies due to his injuries sustaining in that beating. October 9th, 1998, Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney from Laramie, Wyoming, make their first court appearance, and after being arrested for the attempted murder of Shepard, eventually they each received 2 life sentences for killing Shepard. June 2003, the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down the Homosexual Conduct Act, which decriminalizes same-sex conduct with their opinion in Lawrence v. Texas. The decision also reverses Bowers v. Hardwick, a 1986 U.S. Supreme Court that upheld Georgia's sodomy law. May 17, 2004, the first legal same-sex marriage in the United States takes place in Massachusetts. September 6, 2005, the California legislature becomes the first to pass a bill allowing marriage between same-sex couples. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger vetoes the bill. October 25, 2006, the New Jersey Supreme Court rules that state lawmakers must provide the rights and benefits of marriage to gay and lesbian couples. May 15, 2008, the California Supreme Court rules in reference to marriage cases that limiting marriage to opposite-sex couples is unconstitutional. November 4, 2008, voters approved Proposition 8 in California, which makes same-sex marriage illegal. That proposition is later found to be unconstitutional by a federal judge. August 12, 2009, Milk is posthumously awarded the Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. October 28, 2009, Obama signs the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act into law. September 20th, 2011, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is repealed, ending a ban on gay men and lesbians from serving openly in the military. May 9, 2012, in an ABC interview, Obama becomes the first sitting U.S. president to publicly support the freedom for LGBTQ couples to marry. September 4, 2012, the Democratic Party becomes the first major U.S. political party in history to publicly support same-sex marriage on a national platform at the Democratic National Convention. November 6, 2012, Tammy Baldwin becomes the first openly gay politician and the first Wisconsin woman to be elected to the U.S. Senate. June 26, 2013, in United States v. Windsor, the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down Section 3 of the Defense of Marriage Act, ruling that legally married same-sex couples are entitled to federal benefits. The High Court also dismisses a case involving California's Proposition 8. October 6, 2014, the United States Supreme Court denies review in 5 different marriage cases, allowing lower court rulings to stand and therefore allowing same-sex couples to marry in Utah, Oklahoma, Virginia, Indiana, and Wisconsin. The decision opens the door for the right to marry in Colorado, Kansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, and Wyoming. June 9, 2015, Secretary of Defense Ash Carter announces that the military equal opportunity policy has been adjusted to include gay and lesbian military members. April 28, 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court hears oral arguments on the question of the freedom to marry in Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and Michigan. On June 26, the Supreme Court rules that states cannot ban same-sex marriage. The 5-4 ruling had Justice Anthony Kennedy writing for the majority. Each of the 4 conservative justices writes their own dissent. June 27, 2015, Boy Scouts of America President Robert Gates announces the National Executive Board ratified a resolution removing the national restriction on openly gay leaders and employees. May 17, 2016, the Senate confirms Eric Fanning to be the Secretary of the Army, making him the first openly gay Secretary of a U.S. military branch. Fanning previously served as Defense Secretary Carter's Chief of Staff and also served as Undersecretary of the Air Force and the Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy. June 24, 2016, Obama announces the designation of the first national monument to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBTQ rights. The Stonewall National Monument will encompass Christopher Park, the Stonewall Inn, and the surrounding streets and sidewalks that were the sites of the 1969 Stonewall Uprising. June 30th, 2016, Secretary of Defense Carter announces that the Pentagon is lifting the ban on transgender people serving openly in the U.S. military. August 5th through the 21st, 2016, a record number of out athletes compete in Summer Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. The Human Rights Campaign estimates that there were at least 41 open, lesbian, gay, and bisexual Olympians, up from 23 that participated in London in 2012. November 19, 2016, Kate Brown is sworn in as the governor of Oregon. A day after she was officially elected to the office, Brown becomes the highest-ranking LGBTQ person elected in office in the United States. Brown took over the governorship in February 2016 without an election after Democrat John Kitzhaber resigned amidst a criminal investigation. April 4, 2017, the Seventh Circuit of Appeals rules that Civil Rights Act prohibits workplace discrimination against LGBTQ employees after Kimberly Hively sues Ivy Tech Community College for violating Title VII of the Act by denying her employment. June 27, 2017, District of Columbia residents can now choose a gender-neutral option of their driver's license. D.C. residents become the first people in the United States to be able to choose X as their gender marker instead of male or female on driver's license or identification card. Similar policies exist in Canada, India, Bangladesh, Australia, New Zealand, and Nepal. June 30th, the U.S. Department of Defense announced a 6-month delay in allowing transgender individuals to enlist in the United States military. Defense Secretary John Mathis writes that they will use this additional time to evaluate more carefully the impact of such ascensions and readiness and lethality. Approximately a month later, Donald Trump announces via Twitter that the United States government will not accept or allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military. November 7, 2017, Virginia voters elect the state's first openly transgender candidate to the Virginia House of Delegates. Danica Roem unseats incumbent delegate Bob Marshall, who had been elected 13 times over 26 years. Rowan becomes the first openly transgender candidate elected to a state legislature in American history. February 26, 2018, the Pentagon confirms that the first transgender person has signed a contract to join the U.S. military. March 4th, 2018, Daniela Vega, the star of Oscar-winning foreign film A Fantastic Woman, becomes the first openly transgender presenter in the American awards history when she introduces a performance by Sufjan Stevens, who sung Mystery of Love from the Call Me By Your Name soundtrack, is nominated for Best Original Song. March 23rd, the Trump administration announces a new policy that bans most transgender people from serving in the military. After several court battles, the Supreme Court allows the ban to go into effect in January 2019. November 6, 2018, Democratic U.S. Representative Jared Poles wins the Colorado governor's race and becomes the nation's first openly gay man to be elected governor. June 30th, 2019, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signs a law banning the use of the so-called gay and trans panic legal defense strategy. The tactic asks a jury to find that a victim's sexual orientation or gender identifier is to blame for a defendant's violent action. New York follows California, Rhode Island, Illinois, Nevada, and Connecticut as the sixth state to pass such a law. September 22nd, 2019, Billy Porter becomes the first openly gay man to win the Emmy for Best Lead Actor in a Drama Series. February 10th, 2020, the 19th Circuit Court of Appeals upholds a ruling that the state of Idaho must provide gender confirmation surgery for Adri Edmo, an inmate in the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction. The ruling marks the first time a federal appeals court has ruled that the state must provide gender assignment surgery to an incarcerated person. According to the court opinion, the gender confirmation surgery was medically necessary for Edmo and ordered the state to provide the surgery. In July 2020, Edmo received gender confirmation surgery, and a May 2020 appeal by Attorney General of Idaho Lawrence Waston was denied as moot by the U.S. Supreme Court in October 2020. June 15, 2020, the Supreme Court rules that federal laws protect LGBT workers from discrimination. The landmark ruling extends protections to millions of workers nationwide and is a defeat for the Trump administration, which argued that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act that bars discrimination based on sex did not extend to claims of gender identity and sexual orientation. August 26, 2020, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals rules in favor of former student Gavin Grimm in a more than 4-year fight over restroom policies for transgender students. The ruling states that policies segregating transgender students from their peers is unconstitutional and violate federal law prohibiting sex discrimination in education. The decision relies in part on the Supreme Court's decision in June 2020 stating that discrimination against people based on their gender identity or sexual orientation violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. November 3rd, 2020, the general election results in 3 legislative firsts. Sarah McBride wins the Senate race for Delaware District 1 and will become the nation's first person who identifies as transgender to serve as the state senator. Richie Torres wins the House race for New York District 15 and will become the first black member of Congress who identifies as gay. Maureen Turner wins the race for Oklahoma State House of District 88 and will become the first non-binary state legislator in U.S. history and first Muslim lawmaker in Oklahoma. January 25th, 2021, President Joe Biden signs an executive order repealing the 2019 Trump-era ban on most transgender Americans joining the military. This is reinstating a position that their previous commanders and as well as secretaries have supported. And what I am doing is enabling all qualified Americans to serve their country in uniform, Biden said, speaking from the Oval Office just before signing the executive order. February 2nd, 2021, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg becomes the first Senate-confirmed LGBTQ cabinet secretary. I also have an upcoming episode that goes into further detail on this subject, from its birth to where it is presently, and so we can see that this one has definitely been checked. 7. Debase art and make it run mad. Alex Bailey understood that the arts are one of the primary keys to change culture. How? Promote new forms of art which will corrupt and defile the imagination of people, because art is the language of the spirit. That which is inside you can bring out in painting, music, drama, etc. Look at the quality, spirituality, and message of the art, music, and the films that are coming out. The idea of human rights began as a call for individual freedom from tyranny, yet today it is exploited to rationalize oppression and promote collectivism. How did this happen? The debasing of art, from natural to abstract, from paintings to graffiti, from the distortion of and the synthesizing of sounds, positive rap to misogynistic and violent, from movies of love and inspiration to movies of fear and betrayal. And well, this is but another check. 8. Use media to promote and change mindset. Alex Bailey said the greatest channel you need to use to change human attitude is media. Use the press, the radio, TV, cinema. You can tell today how successful they have been in implementing the plan over the last 50 years via media, as well as advertising agencies, billboards, and magazines. Who controls the media? NWO, New World Order. So much money is being pumped into media and advertisement, and the spreading of violence, pornographic material, and other sources. Sex outside of marriage is thrown in your face 80 to 90 times more than sex in marriage. Promiscuity is being promoted as natural. You watch gay sex on TV in homes with children's minds are being neutralized to sensitivity to these things. You wonder why newspapers, TV, etc. do not record anything about Christian activities. Background on the power of TV. Most kids plug into the world of television long before they enter school, according to the CASHAPP Family Foundation. 2/3 of infants and toddlers watch a screen on average of 2 hours a day. Kids under the age of 6 watch an average of about 2 hours of screen media a day, primarily TV and videos or DVDs. Kids and teens 8 to 18 years spend nearly 4 hours a day in front of the TV screen and almost 2 additional hours on the computer outside of schoolwork and playing video games. Television statistics. According to the AC Nielsen Company, the average American watches more than 4 hours of TV each day, or 28 hours a week, or 2 months of nonstop television watching per year. In 65-year life, that person will have spent 9 years glued to the tube, or almost 15% of their life. Norman Hare, Ph.D., professor of science education at California State University at Northridge, has found these statistics in 1995. 1. Family life. Percentage of households that possess at least one television, 99%. Number of TV sets in the average U.S. household, 2.24. A percentage of U.S. homes with 3 or more TV sets, 66%. Number of hours per day that the TV is on in an average U.S. home, 6 hours and 47 minutes. Percentage of Americans that regularly watch television while eating dinner, 66%. Number of hours of television watched annually by Americans is 250 billion. Family life. Percentage of households that possess at least one television, 99%. Number of TV sets in the average U.S. household, 2.24. Percentage of U.S. homes with 3 or more TV sets, 66%. Number of hours per day that the TV is on in the average U.S. home, 6 hours and 47 minutes. Percentage of Americans that regularly watch television while eating dinner, 66%. Number of hours of television watched annually by Americans, 250 billion. Value of time assuming an average wage of $5 an hour, 1.25 trillion. Percentage of Americans who pay for cable TV, 56%. Number of videos rented daily in the U.S., 6 million. Number of public library items checked out daily, 3 million. Percentage of Americans who say they watch too much television, 49%. Now let's look at the children. Approximate number of studies examining TV's effects on children, 4,000. Number of minutes per week that parents spend in meaningful conversation with their children, 3.5. Number of minutes per week the average child watches television, 1,680 minutes, or 28 hours. Percentage of daycare centers that use television during typical day, 70%. Percentage of parents who would like to limit their children's television watching, 73%. Percentage of 4 to 6 year olds when asked to choose between watching TV and spending time with their father preferred watching television, 54%. Hours per year the average American youth spends in school, 900 hours. Hours per year the average American youth watches television, 1,500 hours. A 1991 study showed that there were an average of 200 junk food ads in the 4 hours of children's Saturday morning cartoons. Violence. Number of murders seen on TV by the time an average child finishes elementary school, 11 years, 8,000. Number of violent acts seen on TV by the age 18, 200,000. Percentage of Americans who believe TV violence helps precipitate real life mayhem, 79%. Commercialism. Number of 30-second TV commercials seen in a year by an average child, 20,000, equals 10,000 minutes or 166 hours and 35 minutes. Number of TV commercials seen by an average person by the age of 65, 2 million and 1 million minutes, or 16,666 hours, or 1,389 days, 12 hours, which is 3.8 years of the average American life is spent watching TV commercials by 65 years of age, or about 3.5 of your life is watching commercials. Percentage of survey participants of 1993 who said that TV commercials aimed at children make them too materialistic, 92%. The rank of food products, fast food restaurants among TV advertisements to kids was 1. Total spending by 100 leading TV advertisers in 1993, 15 billion. General. Percentage of local TV news broadcast time devoted to advertising, 30%. Percentage devoted to stories about crime, disaster, and war, 53.8%. Percentage devoted to public service announcements, 0.7%. Percentage of Americans who can name the Three Stooges, 59%. Percentage of Americans who can name 3 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court, 15%. We just watched the media totally desecrate a man for trying to bring back the very same organic morals and values that this nation was founded on. I watched lies told habitually to the point that it impeded an irrational psychological hatred for a man who was actually helping the very people who he was hated by the most. I watched the word race and racism baited and hustled like crack in the 80s, and blacks still living out Roots slavery. Roots, which was a plagiarized piece of bullshit by Alex Haley, which was brought forth to plan our minds to change the images of psychological slavery that still exists to this very day. All stereotypes and stigmas of various races, especially blacks, have been programmed by propaganda, televisions, and news media liberal reports. Media is and has always been under elite control, and the reason that these outlandish theories and ideologies have been so easily planted into the minds of so many. And here we go again, another check. 9. Create an interfaith movement. Alex Bailey wrote, promote other faiths to be at par with Christianity and break this thing about Christianity being the only way to heaven. By that, Christianity will be pulled down and other faiths promoted. She said, promote the importance of man in determining his own future and destiny. Humanism. Tell man that he has the right to choose what he wants to be and he can make it happen. He has the right to determine his cause. The term interfaith dialogue refers to a cooperative, constructive, and positive interaction between people of different religious traditions and example faiths, and or spiritual and humanistic beliefs at both the individual and institutional levels. It is distinct from syncretism or alternative religion, and that dialogue often involves promoting understanding between different religions or beliefs to increase acceptance of others rather than to synthesize new beliefs. Some interfaith dialogues have more recently adopted the name interbelief dialogue to avoid implicitly excluding atheists, agnostics, humanists, and others with no religious faith but with ethical and philosophical beliefs, as well as to be more accurate concerning many world religions that do not emphasis on faith as do some Western religions. Similarly, pluralistic, rationalist groups have hosted public reasoning dialogues to transcend all worldviews, whether religious, cultural, or political, termed trans-belief dialogue. Throughout the world, There are local, regional, national, and international interfaith initiatives. Many are formally or informally linked to constitute larger networks or federations. The often quoted, "There will be no peace among the nations without peace among the religions," was formulated by Dr. Hans Kuhn, a professor of ecumenical theology and president of the Global Ethic Foundation. Red flag. This here sounds to me like a melting pot of God and or godless beliefs all combining together to form a one world religion, which makes me so glad I'm spiritual and not religious. I wouldn't quite give this a full check, at least not yet, so we will have to give this one a half a check, so it is still scratching the paper. 10. Get governments to make all these laws and get the church to endorse these changes. Alex Bailey wrote that the church must change its doctrine and accommodate the people by accepting these things and put them into its structures and systems. Had they succeeded? Today you wonder why the governments are legislating laws contrary to the Bible and why the church is compromising the Word of God. It is a process of implementing this 10-point plan, a 50-year strategy of the New World Order to fulfill this ultimate goal to establish a one-world government, a one-world economic system, and a one-world religion. Today, the strategy almost in its entirety has been adopted by the United Nations, and today a lot of it's already in law in many nations. This deception has crept up by increments, unobserved by most people. It can best be demonstrated through the well-known analogy of the frog in a pot of water. If you put the frog in a pot of boiling water, it is smart enough to know that it is in terrible danger and will immediately jump out to safety. But if you turn the heat up very slowly, a little at a time, it doesn't notice the changes that are taking place and will slowly cook to death. Many people today are slowly cooking to death and don't seem to realize how far they've come from where they once were. Note, today, the Western world is not struggling to resist these because the NWO and the New Age movement focus primarily on the West because that was the Christian world in the 19th century. The New Age movement has a school called a Connie School, which is the school of all the leaders of the Western world. They subscribe to it. It is recorded that they say they have succeeded the task in the West, but suddenly they realize Christianity has migrated to the rest of the world, so they have now to use every resource in the West to deal with the rest of the world. It is interesting to note that Blatchley, Besant, and Alex Bailey were well-known Masonic leaders of the day. Albert Pike referred to Freemasonry as the custodian or special guardian of these occult secrets and revealed the hidden agenda of the institution, the forming of a Luciferic one-world government. Background on how the teachings of Alex Bailey are foundational to the United Nations. Dr. Robert Mueller, former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and Chancellor of the United Nations University for Peace, is the chairperson of Peace Party 2000. Peace Party's homepage on the internet. Decide to open yourself to God, the universe, to all your brethren and sisters, to your inner self, to the potential of the human race, to the infinity of your inner self, and you will become the universe. You will become infinity, and you will be at long last, your real divine, stupendous self. Robert Miller, Decide to Be Linked. Part 2. Philosophy of Robert Miller. The underlying philosophy upon which the Robert Miller School is based will be found in the teaching set forth in the books of Alex Bailey. The school is now certified as a United Nations associated school, providing education for international cooperation and peace. Muller R. World Core Curriculum, Preface. Alex Ann Bailey, often known as Alex A. Bailey, or AAB, born June 16, 1880, in Manchester, England, died December 15, 1949. Alex Ann Bailey, often known as Alex Bailey, or AAB, born June 16, 1880, Manchester, England, died December 15, 1949, writer and lecturer on neo-theosophy, was born in England 1880 as Alice Latrobe Bateman. She moved to America in 1907 where she spent the rest of her life. She was the high priestess and prophetess of the New Age movement. She was a prolific author on occultism and founded the International Esoteric Movement. Sir John Sinclair, 32-degree Mason, gives commentary on the seminal influence of Alex Bailey, which he says underlies the conscious growth movement in the 20th century. Note, Alex Bailey founded the publishing company called Lucifer Trust and it was later changed to Lucis Trust. Address for Lucis Trust is 120 Wall Street, 24th floor, New York, New York, 1005, USA. Foster and Alex Bailey, they started a group called World Goodwill, which is an official non-government organization within the United Nations. The stated aim of this group is to cooperate in the world of preparation for the reappearance of the Christ. One Earth, the magazine of the Fordham Foundation, October, November 1986, Volume 6, Issue 6, page 24. Forgetting the things that lie behind, I will strive towards my highest spiritual possibilities. I dedicate myself anew to the service of the coming one and will do all I can to prepare men's minds and hearts for that event. I have no other life intention. Barely, AA, Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, New York, Lucis Trust, page 226. Note, Alex Bailey wants a unified religion. And which Christ is she preparing for? Not Jesus, the cosmic Christ, or Lucifer. Alex Bailey claimed evidence of the growth of the human intellect along with the needed receptive lines for the preparation of the new age can be seen in the planning of various nations and in the efforts of the United Nations to formulate a world plan. From the very start of this unfolding, three occult factors have governed the development of all these plans. Alice Bailey, Discipleship of the New Age, Lucis Press, 1955, Volume 1, page 35. Note, she is not going to tell us exactly what these three occult factors are, but she states, within the United Nations is the germ and seed of a great international and meditating reflective group, a group of thinking and informed men and women in whose hands lies the destiny of humanity. This is largely under the control of many fourth-rate disciples, if you could but realize it, and their point of meditative focus is the intuitional or Buddhic plane, the plane upon which all hierarchical activity is today to be found. I bid, page 220. Note, what is she trying to tell us? That the inner core of the United Nations is ran by people that are under the control of Lucifer? Alex Bailey received messages from Djwal Khul. Note, this is Lucifer speaking through Alex Bailey. Suffice to say that I am a Tibetan of a certain degree, and this is to tell you but title, for all are disciples from the humblest aspirant up to and beyond the Christ himself. Those associated with me in the work of the hierarchy know me by still another name and office. AAB, Alex A. Bailey, knows who I am and recognizes me by two of my names. I am a brother of yours who has traveled a little longer on the path than has the average student and has therefore incurred greater responsibilities. I must therefore act as a transmitter of the light, no matter what the cause. My work is to teach and spread the knowledge of the ageless wisdom wherever I can find a response. Published August 1934. The Tibetan has asked me to make clear that when he is speaking of the Christ, he is referring to his official name as head of hierarchy. The Christ works for all men, irrespective of their faith. He does not belong to the Christian world any more than he belongs to the Buddhist or Mohammedan or any other faith. There is no need for any man to join the Christian church in order to be affiliated with Christ. The requirements are to love your fellow men, lead a disciplined life, recognize the divinity in all faiths and all beings, and rule your daily life with love. Bailey A.A., The Externalization of the Hierarchy. New York, Lucis Trust, page 558. Note, as you can see, their Christ is Lucifer. Need more proof? Read on. Where did Alex Bailey get her teachings? Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society. Madame Blavatsky stands out as the fountainhead of modern occult thought and was either the originator and or popularized many of the ideas and terms which have a century later been assembled with the New Age movement. The Theosophical Society, which she co-founded, has been the major advocate of occult philosophy in the West and the single most important avenue of Eastern teaching to the West. Quotes from her books. Lucifer represents life, thought, progress, civilization, liberty, independence. Lucifer is Logos, the serpent, the savior. The Secret Doctrine by Helen Petrovna Blavatsky on pages 171, 225, 255, volume 11. It is Satan who is God of our planet and the only God. Pages 215, 216, 220, 245, 255, 233, volume 6. The celestial virgin, which thus becomes the mother of gods and devils at one time and the same time, for she is the ever-loving, beneficent deity, but in equity, in reality, Lucifer or Luciferius is the name. Lucifer is divine and terrestrial light, the Holy Ghost, and Satan at one and the same time. Page 539. Why does Alex Bailey want a one-world order? First of all, he will come to a world which is essentially one world. Bailey, A.A., The Reappearance of the Christ, New York, Lucius Trust, page 15. The major effect of his appearance will surely be to demonstrate in every land the effects of the spirit of inclusiveness, an inclusiveness which will be channeled and expressed through him. All who seek right human relations will be gathered automatically to him, whether they are in one of the great religions or not. All who see no true or basic difference between religion and religion, or between man and man, or nation and nation, will rally around him. Those who embody the spirit of exclusiveness and separateness will stand automatically and equally revealed, and all men will know them for what they are. Bailey, A.A., The Reappearance of the Christ, New York, Lucius Trust, page 15. Note, I do have the spirit of exclusiveness, and they know what I am. I am a follower of Christ. There is a difference between religions. One has the truth and is free, and the other ones are stuck in Babylon as slaves to Lucifer. When will Lucifer come? The reply comes with clarity. He will come unfailingly when a measure of peace has been restored. Bailey, A.A., The Externalization of Hierarchy, New York, Lucius Trust, page 616. The major required preparation for the coming of the Christ is a world at peace. However, that peace must be based on the educated goodwill, which will lead inevitably to right human relations, and therefore to the establishment of lines of light between nation and nation, religion and religion, group and group, man and man. Bailey, A.A., The Externalization of Hierarchy, New York, Lucius Trust, page 611. What does the present priest of the UN have to say? The United Nations is the way to oneness that leads to supreme oneness. It is like the river flowing towards the source, the ultimate source. The United Nations becomes for us the answer to world suffering, world darkness, and world ignorance. The inner vision of the United Nations is gift supreme. The vision the world can deny for 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years. In the sphere of international relations, a sense of greater or shared responsibility is particularly needed. Today, when the world is becoming increasingly interdependent, the dangers of irresponsible behavior have dramatically increased unless we realize that now we are a part of one big human family. We cannot hope to bring about peace and happiness. The Dalai Lama, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. So what is the New Age agenda? 1. Merge God and nature, ecology. 2. Eugenics. 3. Eradicate male and female distinction, androgyny. 4. World peace and nuclear disarmament. 5. One world economic and financial system. 6. One world government. 7. One world religion. Organizations that are leading the way towards global government. 1. The United Nations. 2. The Council on Foreign Relations. 3. The Trilateral Commission. 4. The Bilderberg Group. 5. The Gorbachev Foundation. And 6. The Club of Rome. How do you lead the world to unite and bring religions together? Education. The world will not change and find peace if there is not a new education. And so in closing, brother, as you can see, it is a major agenda 50 to 60 years ahead of us. So feel free to Google the info. But see, with the knowledge of yourself and the knowledge of your true enemy, the battle is pretty much already won. We just got to arm the troops with all the tools, the knowledge they need for battle. Or else, once again, it's checkmate.
but my mind's still free. I don't plan to give that up. I can't give that up to no one. Don't wanna give that up. Through this uncertainty, I feel I'm going insane, but it isn't showing.
Gotta keep my mind by all means. Miseducated as mine, laid us all in the criminals. Tapped into our minds with programs and subliminals. Media propaganda, fragile minds cannot handle. Those opposing oppression get quickly dismantled. Industry cats use this palm to aid in destruction. Waving 30s in the air, no care, they just bustin'. 1-year-old lost his life, but it was all over nothing. In the discussion, it's time for men to stand up for something. Not just on the block smoking, drinking and pumping, thinking shit sweet till they blitz and come with the sweet. Then it's off to the slave camp, further lesson the chain to escape strife and to find a better way of life. Instead, we always pay the pretty price, make the sacrifice, judge whether we wrong or right. Right there in black and white, y'all please shed some light to get me through this maze. The world's a crazy place, and so we need your amazing grace. Our Father, what now?
My mind's still free. I don't plan to give that up. I can't give that up to no one. Don't wanna give that up. Through this uncertainty, I feel I'm going insane, but it isn't showing.
Gotta keep my mind by all means. One nation under God. See, I find that kind of odd, cause everything I done seen has been the furthest thing. You lied to me, fooled me, told me that I was next to nothing, but I knew I was something. So I paid it no mind and concentrated on mine and developed my grind to get me where I need to be. So I skipped your history, solved the unknown mystery. Get the picture, see, I'm on the righteous path. Now I can kick back and laugh, reflect on the past, the fun times and fumble cash. Could have been a dummy and stayed fast up until I crashed, but nope, I seen a glimpse of hope and managed to stay afloat. Now watch the niggas soul, big face hunters all in boat. So for those who slept, y'all can stay asleep, thinking your life is sweet until shit gets deep. Me, I'm trying to climb the charts till I reach the peak. Told y'all there's no competition, so just let me speak. Need a minute to get some shit up off my mind. Peace I'm trying to find, but I keep hearing siren after siren.
But my mind's still free. I don't plan to give that up. I can't give that up to no one. Don't wanna give that up. Through this uncertainty, I feel I'm going insane, but it isn't showing.
Gotta keep my mind by all means. We let them sell us over, Lambos, racing Rovers. With a real G's, please stand, cause now all I see is pushovers. See what happened to the cat that had paved the way, went against the very system that had tried to diss him, applied that very vision that made him had to listen. Millions overnight from with no pot to pissin'. And see, I've been shining, you just now see me glisten. Took time, but I feel I finally completed the mission. But it ain't over, I know it's more to come, but I'm ready. Focused eyes, piercing through the blinds, trigger finger steady for them devils when they come, and I know they coming. Niggas die every day, baby, so why not die for something? Niggas die every day, baby, so why not die for something? Niggas die every day, baby, so why not die for something?
But my mind's still free. I don't plan to give that up. I can't give that up to no one. Don't wanna give that up. Through this uncertainty, I feel I'm going insane, but it isn't showing.
Gotta keep my mind by all means. See, free thinkers are those that are willing to use their minds without prejudice and without fearing to understand the things that clash with their own customs, privileges, or beliefs. This state of mind is not common, but it is essential for the right thinking.